This meeting of Boston Borough Council's Corporate and Community Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm Paul Gleeson and I'm chairing this meeting this evening, and with me is Councillor Susan Welbury, who is my Vice Chair. Before we move into the preliminary items of this evening's agenda, I need to run through a few housekeeping details. I would like to remind everyone in attendance this evening that this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. Would all persons addressing the meeting please do so through the microphone system at all times. This meeting is being recorded. Please ensure that microphones are turned off after speaking. Moving to part one of the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Mountain, Councillor Ariane Bath, and as portfolio holders, Councillors Creswell and Dorian.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare any interest in respect of any items on the agenda? No. Minutes of the last meeting. Do I have permission to sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of January 2025? Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the public received 2 clear working days prior to this meeting?
Chair, there are none.
Before we move to part 2 of the agenda, I'd just like to mention that tonight is Bee's last evening with us. Though she hasn't been with us for a great time, she's made a great impact and we will all miss her and we wish her luck for the future. Thank you. So we will now move to part 2 of the agenda. The first one is the LGA peer review update and action plan on pages 9 to 18 of your agenda pack. So our first item is the review of the peer review. Lots of reviews there. It was agreed at one of our previous meetings that this would come to us every half year just so we can keep an eye on it. And presenting the report is Assistant Director Corporate James Gilbert.
Wonderful, thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Good evening, councillors. So before you is the Peer Challenge Action Plan. You received this around about August, September time last year when you supported the document to go onto the Cabinet for approval. And since then, we've been working to deliver the actions within it. So Boston was subject to a peer review. It was one of its timetabled peer reviews by the Local Government Association in May last year. The follow-up peer review takes place in May this year. So we've got 2 dates set aside already, the 15th and 16th. And one of the key pieces of evidence the peers will look at when they return is the action plan and what this council has done to deliver against that particular action plan. So I think coming here kind of 8 weeks before that's due to take place is quite good timing. So the action plan before you this evening has a number of strands of governance. Firstly, it's reported to leadership team in terms of its delivery. That's the chief exec and directors. It's also reported quarterly to the leader of the council, Councillor Dorian, and I meet with her and we go through the action plan page by page, and you're the other key line of governance. So with you receiving an update every 6 months, having the opportunity to challenge. So you'll see each of the actions within the action plan is RAG rated, and just a high level overview of where we are with those actions. So there are 29 actions in the plan, 10 have been completed, they're the grey actions. We've got 14 that are on track, they're the green actions. And we've got 5 yellows. Now, yellow means something is off the original target date, but it has got a date for delivery. So it's slipped a little bit. There are no reds in here, which is really positive, I think, in terms of everything having a delivery date. So if we move to the first page of the action plan, the first action you will notice is an additional action. So this was an action that wasn't originally included when it came forward, but it was felt to be necessary, I think, after further consideration was given. And that was the development of a borough-wide plan. And that's something Suzanne is presenting for scrutiny later this evening. So again, I think that's quite good time and the opportunity to help shape that. And that's one of the things I think the peers did actually want to see when they came back. So we have added that as an action. That's on track to be signed off, subject to scrutiny this evening by the back end of this month, all being well. Now, I wasn't going to take the other actions line by line, but if there's any questions in relation to them or anything you'd particularly like me to talk to, we have got evidence alongside each of the actions which aims to give some comfort to the peers and also you as a committee in terms of delivery. But if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you. Yeah, just before I open it for questions and comments, can I just congratulate you on the actual report? I found it very readable and very easy to understand. So it makes it, when you're not having to dig, backwards and forwards and things, it just makes it a lot better. So, questions and comments, Councillor Pierpoint.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. James, going through the action plan, all the different pages, the thing that I'm sort of not happy about is the word ongoing. To me, that has no substance at all in relation to when's it going to finish. Should it say something like a review date? There we're going to review something, or progress date. I think ongoing to me means it's never going to get finished. And I just like to think that in a plan, I always like to see something with a date on it. Either it's a review date, progress date, or it's an end date. I think ongoing to me means when is it going to finish? How's it going to finish? And, it worries me a little bit. So that's one thing. I'll just go through the bits and pieces. On page 16, you talk about taking some legal advice out about recommendation to shareholders about the local partnership. What was the outcome of that? Can you tell us that, or is it so confidential we can't find out what the outcome was? And then also on page 16, it talks about PSPS playing an active role to support Partnership Council transformation. How far has that gone? Because it's an ongoing situation. How far has that got to? Where has it got to? And where do we stand at this moment in time? They're the sort of things that I'm keen to have some answers to. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you, Councillor Pierpoint. Fully take the point and the challenge around the word ongoing. It was felt to me for a number of the actions it was appropriate to have the word ongoing, just because things like updating the intelligence hub will be an ongoing piece of work. But if we want progress updates with dates in there, we can have them. I mean, the evidence column is always live, so we're regularly reviewing the evidence column to make sure it's reflective of where the action's up to. But I'm more than happy to go away and have a look at the word ongoing and see if we can tighten some of those.
Do you see my point that, when you've got something ongoing, when is it going to get finished? When is it going to, I don't mind seeing review at that point in time, or I don't mind seeing progress to date at that point in time with a date. I'm always a great believer that when you're doing things on an action plan, a date has to appear somewhere. Ongoing to me means it never gets finished, or it goes on forever and ever and ever. And it gives people excuses not to finish something. So I'm probably being a bit pernickety, but I think it's important that for people like me who want to see some dates at the side of it, it would help me understand how far you've got with the process. Okay.
So if we had something like ongoing review half yearly.
Okay, no, that's completely fine. Every action here is reviewed at least quarterly.
Yes,
but I can pick that up, so not a problem at all. In relation to the second point that was raised in relation to the PSPS advice, I believe some advice was circulated around members previously, so I think that advice has been received by members. I will take that away and have a look though, but some advice has been received in relation to company governance, and that advice is being acted upon at the moment.
I can't recall that information, but if you can either resend it to me, or if it can't be discussed here, then perhaps you could tell me at an appropriate time. And then the other one is about PSPS and the transformation there. I'd be interested to see how far we've got with that.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So the PSPS transformation programme has now come forward. It has been through scrutiny here. I think it was a joint committee of C&C and EMP that went through the that went through the plan. It hasn't been through Cabinet in this council at this point in time. It has been through the Cabinets at East Lindsey and South Holland because it is a joint plan. Notwithstanding the fact it hasn't been through Cabinet here, when the business cases come forward from PSPS for the projects that are in the plan, they will present opportunities to this council for this council to consider. So there will be opportunities for potential efficiency savings within the company and project ideas that could benefit customers coming forward for consideration.
Yeah, thank you. Just the word support transformation was concerning about what is it they're actually doing regarding transformation. Are they doing the whole process? Are they doing the whole exercise, or are they just supporting officers to achieve the? I see. I'm just curious to know how it's going. That's all.
So, I think there's two strands. Firstly, PSPS have got their own transformation programme, which is about delivering reductions in the contract price the council pays to the company. Secondly, they're instrumental into all our transformation of services. They run IT, they run HR, they run finance. So I think about colleagues around the table now. Emily's just brought forward a service review. Andy has. They will be instrumental in working through the numbers, supporting the HR process. So without them enabling functions, it's very difficult for us to deliver a lot of what we want to deliver. So their role is working alongside us really to make sure we're getting things right in terms of finance, HR and IT as we're bringing transformational opportunities forward.
Councillor Austin, then Councillor Izard.
Thank you, Chair. We've just lost two senior directors of this council. Is that having any effect on the action plans?
No effect at all.
Councillor Izard.
Thank you, Chair. James, take page 15. I know you said that you didn't want any red on your report, and I can understand that. But when you've got training and its timescales the 30th of September 2024, how long does a yellow period last before you start falling behind on those timescales?
Got numbers on my
Top of page 16, I think.
Page 15,
15,
training for
sorry.
councillors and senior officers.
code of conduct training. Okay.
So I read it to time.
So training for councillors and senior officers for roles, respective roles, behaviours and code of conduct. Okay, so that was due to be delivered by the 30th of September last year. In the status column, you can see we've got a Q4 in there now. I spoke to John Medler today. Dates are due to land in diaries for delivery by the end of this month, all being well. So dates will be coming out to members shortly with a view to delivery by the end of this month. So Q4, the date in the status column will be the delivery date.
Any other questions? No? Well, the committee is asked to note and comment on the presentation. I think we've done that. That's been recorded. So thank you, James, for that report. And I suppose we'll have something after the May review.
Absolutely. Some of you will be invited to participate in the follow-up peer review, and you've probably got dates in your diaries already. And I will come back to you on the 2 points you've raised, Councillor Pierpoint, as well.
Thank you. So we now go to item 2, which is the Healthy Living Board, pages 19 to 36 of the agenda. This will be presented by the Healthy Living Strategy Lead, Roxanne Warwick, and supported by the Assistant Director for Wellbeing and Community Leadership, Emily Spicer.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for inviting us back to the committee to provide an update on the work of South and East Lincolnshire Partnership Healthy Living Board. We have included in the report some local opportunities this partnership has provided Boston in the last year in response to some joint scrutiny recommendations. So this time last year, March 2024, this committee received a report from the joint scrutiny around the establishment of the Healthy Living Board. And the scrutiny was an opportunity for members to help inform the board's remit, purpose, and help us prioritise what is a huge range of work and activity. Boston members on this panel were Councillor Welbury, Councillor Drayton and Councillor Arambath. And Councillor Welbury is welcome to comment on the updates tonight. The scrutiny panel rightly concluded that our role in health and wellbeing was not statutory and not clinical, but as district council services and partnerships, we have a huge understanding of the needs of our community and opportunities to influence better health outcomes. Recognising the broad scope of healthy living, including all the social and economic determinants of health, the panel recommended the Healthy Living Board prioritise 2 areas locally, and they're outlined in section 2.2 of the report. And they were activity and wellbeing, which includes addressing inactivity to help improve opportunity for residents to be active, and working with communities to leverage unique links at place and engage with communities. The now established, the Healthy Living Board has provided a platform for our NHS colleagues, local charities and community groups to come and work with us. And it's given the partners a way to work with the South and East Lincolnshire Partnership, but also given them confidence that we've got the appetite, energy and the governance in place to deliver some quite ambitious projects. The report outlines the 9 recommendations made by the Joint Scrutiny Panel from section 3 of the report, and we provide an example of local delivery in response to each of those to give you a flavour of some of the local work. We're not going to go through them all today, but just I'd like to draw your attention to a couple of the recommendations, particularly around 3.6, around increasing place expansion and activity. I just noted on the front of the Boston Standard yesterday that the Sport England place expansion was announced last week, and that's a great example of an opportunity the Healthy Living Board has given Boston that really is around, well, fulfilling both of those priorities, strengthening communities and helping people become physically active. The other one I'd like to just discuss briefly is prevention, that's section 3.7 of the report. Because ultimately, and I think the panel reflected on this and it was discussed at this committee, a shift to prevention is what most organisations are striving for. It will produce, reduce poor health, reduce the risk of exclusion and reduce pressure on local services. So I have included a few examples of some of the prevention work that sit in my service area. So, for example, the work we've been doing with Links Digital, a Lincolnshire-based digital inclusion charity to help people access and navigate support, give them confidence online. And in Boston, over 100 people have been engaged in those projects, coming to community-based drop-ins, complete non-internet users, and we've helped them access not just the skills and confidence, but sometimes data and devices as well. Another one I'm really proud of is the Household Support Fund. Again, a huge amount of discretionary welfare funding in Boston, and the Healthy Living Board have overseen local delivery by working with organisations on the board to get that in the hands of the people in most need of support with help with household essentials. Since its launch, actually, the Healthy Living Board have been totting up the numbers, have administered over 1.6 million for Boston residents directly in small grants for utilities, food, school uniforms. We've supported projects with bed poverty, furniture and a huge range of other welfare needs. And we're currently, by the end of this financial year, we will have helped around 12,000 small grants and emergency support through the Household Support Fund. So again, a huge shift to prevention and really reduces the sort of, the financial stress and the anxiety around the cost of living pressures. I'm not going to go through any more. I'm just going to invite the committee, welcome any comments or feedback, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, another nice, clear report. Councillor Pierpoint.
Yeah, very concise, very well done. This has been going for 6 years, this programme, has it? Has it been going for 6 years? From 2021, right up to current day, or 5 or 6 years?
Sorry, which programme
On page
was that?
23 at the bottom with the little tables in there. Is this it tells you the amount of money you've been allocated under each year, is that right? Yeah. Oh, that's just for that one, is it? House Support Fund?
Yeah, that's just the household support fund. So the household support fund was announced in October 21 as part of the coming out of the COVID response for some of the changes in universal credit and welfare gaps. So yeah, household support fund has just been a local discretionary pot of funding allocated to Lincolnshire County Council, but locally accepted and delivered by our Healthy Living Board.
Okay, I'm keen to know how you monitor all these projects and what would you say has been some of the major successes? You've given us one or two just now, because I'm always interested to know, you know, the investment and the time versus the success and the outcome. Have you got anything you want to report on that to us? You know, what sort of successes have you had, and how do you monitor these activities?
Well, every project has its own, monitoring. The Healthy Living Board brings back around a huge amount. I mean, I think the partnership with Active Lincolnshire has been a great success because the potential areas for the place expansion could have been anywhere in the country. And there were other areas of Lincolnshire included in the initial Sport England list. But it was by working with Active Lincolnshire to show them that we were ready we have the governance, the Healthy Living Board in place, and a role in the kind of wider determinants working with the community, that they have chosen to work with us to get that funding locally. So that's one of our big successes recently. So the Healthy Living Board does oversee the whole partnership. So there have been some other significant infrastructure projects in some other areas of East Lindsey and South Holland. So we've been doing a lot of age-friendly work under the board. But for me, I suppose the Household Support Fund is the best one. We have such a strong engagement with our third sector and our partners around that table that we're able to get the funds out quickly. Some of the local authorities where they didn't have that in place have not been able to administer those funds, or it's fallen into your statutory revenues and benefits topping up the people who may be already in receipt. But with our household support fund, we've been able to do away with benefits being an eligibility for support and really been able to assess people on their circumstance.
Certainly your onions. Well done. Thank you.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. Now, on page 22, the top of the page, the section on scrutiny recommendations, the first recommendation is to make better use of green spaces to maximise opportunities of residents and visitors. Now, what disappoints me about that is the recommendation and the action. It was the BBC website now includes outdoor activities. Right. In Boston, we have 8 large country parks within 4 miles of the centre of Boston, and we have a wonderful central park in the centre of Boston. Now, this is unique to virtually any town in the country, and we want to be shouting from the rooftops about it on every opportunity, certainly about healthy living and what a nice place it is to live here. Now, the action was to include outdoor activities in the website. Now, I went on the website to look for this, and I really struggled hard to find it. I did find it in the end, but when I found it, there was no big headline saying, wow, we've got 8 country parks that you can enjoy here. There was no mention that we'd got 2 RSP reserves, wonderful places for exercise and walk, as well as bird watching. There was no mention of our wonderful closed cemetery, a wonderful place to go and exercise and enjoy the wonderful trees and nature that's there. We're not making enough of this wonderful facility we have here. I'm going to come later in this on other agendas to come back to this one, but we need on the website a very prominent place broadcasting this wonderful facility that Boston has that I suspect no other town in the country has. Thank you.
Thank you. I would agree that things are quite hard to find on some of the council websites generally. So I will take an action to definitely review that and try and do a bit more promotion with partners around what's available locally. Some of the local primary care networks and GPs have started thinking about walking maps around their area. So it's something I'm happy to pick up on and see if they've got any other information that they're sharing with local residents.
But I think the key thing is the headline wants to be 8 large country parks and Central Park. It wants to be a headline. You don't want to it doesn't want to be way down the bottom somewhere about in the detail. I think I couldn't find it at all. Then I started looking in the hidden parts of it, and then I put it said I printed in the word.
It's a shame because the work you're doing, what you're doing is very good, and it's a shame that you've not got that presence. You know what I mean? Exactly what it's saying. It's a shame that, isn't it? Really, I think we ought to go back, knock on somebody's door, and say we need a bigger presence on the website.
I will certainly ask the structures of the IT to get me up the algorithm then, because we do have a community and wellbeing section that our service can add content to, but all services are responsible for their own content, and sometimes it is difficult to find.
And if you want any details of them, I'll be very pleased to supply.
I will certainly take you up on that as well. Thank you.
Anybody else? Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the report. I just want to touch on 2 things. I think at page 29, paragraph 4, integrated care systems are being designed to serve 4 key purposes. I want to touch on improving population health and healthcare. And also I want to come to, I think, page 30, which is summary of overreaching objectives and themes by level area. Sorry. So I want to look at improving the supply of housing needs and demands. I know that you get grants and you improve housings and things around the area. However, we still have some issues with a lot of HMOs. So they're not really fully complying with the law and keeping the places intact and clean. And that's which is affecting us with the fly tipping in the town. That's one thing. The second thing, homelessness. I think it has been increased in Boston. There is a lot of homeless people around. And I think just around Airby Street, under the bridge, I think there is another tent or 2 of them. So there is an increase of that. The other thing which is affects the well-being of people, I think, is probably the habit of the food they eat. That can affect a lot of people. And knowing that the inflation is so high, I think it's around 3%. A lot of people, they tend to go to a cheaper food, easier for kids, and that's why we have a lot of health issues. Bear in mind, and not to forget, that the negative image we get from the national media about Boston is the most obese town, is the crime town, is this. But as Councillor Austin says, we don't promote the positive thing as much as we can. And I think we should probably start tackling the national media and divert the views from being negative to something positive for Boston. I mean, if we have 8 country parks, that's mean a lot of people can be very healthy. We have a lot of gyms around the town. So, and they're not expensive now. Average is £22, £25, so people can use these things. So I think we should probably be more realistic and talk about, like I say, our positive things. However, there is negative things which are happening. Also, I would like to add the last point is we still have an influx of a lot of migrants coming from Eastern European countries. And I can see sometimes, like today, few families with their kids not going to school. So these things will impact on us, because I think for the last year, our child poverty has risen to 30%. That's very, very high. So I think there is a hard work we can do here. And I think, I mean, we're trusting you to do the right job. And I think this is just few things which is, I think we should touch on and you know, try to tackle it. Thank you.
Thank you. All of those areas are in the remit of social and economic determinants, and economic inclusion and reducing poverty are other strands. Today I'll specifically updating on the recommendations made by the Joint Scrutiny Panel, but the Healthy Living Board have a rolling agenda. Every time we meet, we pick one of our different themes to bring partners to focus together. And so I take your feedback on board, particularly around food insecurity and the pressures on healthy eating. It's something we're very interested in, and we hope that future household support funding will allow a little more leeway to maybe support some healthy living, healthy food sessions in Boston. So thank you.
Just a quick aside before our next meeting, we've got a briefing on HMOs, just for members' awareness. I've got a sort of general question. How involved are the parish councils in this?
They haven't been involved in the Healthy Living Board directly, but under Councillor Creswell's portfolio, she's now established a regular meeting with them. I think that was one of the local feedbacks in response to the recommendations, working with communities at all levels. And now there's a well-established, is it monthly?
3 times a year at the moment.
3 times a year.
Which is, my feeling is, obviously, with the proposed reorganisations, obviously the nearest local voice you're going to come up with is the putative town council for Boston and the parishes. And my feeling is that we need now to start moving the power, if we can, to those organisations.
So if I may, Chairman, so we've recognised the power of our communities for a long time, but we recognise that sometimes there's support that needs to be given to be able to enable communities to lead the way in terms of what they need for their individual areas. Through the community leadership team at Boston Borough Council, we have done that very successfully through setting up a volunteer scheme, supporting in terms of health and safety for events. There's a whole wide tools that we're trying to gift. Now, we can do that in several ways. At the moment, we're doing it through direct interaction with communities, but as Roxanne has detailed, we've got a really good working relationship with our parish councils that through Councillor Creswell we've ignited over the last 12-18 months. And again, there will be tools, there's the signposting, the support in terms of there's still a vast amount of funding out there. You've just got to know about it and find it. And so you're absolutely right, and we've recognised that, and that's some of the actions that my team certainly undertake now and will continue to do so.
Because in my view, is that our role over the next couple of years is to empower as much as we can our local communities, because without being over political, I think it is going to become harder for people to contact and achieve things. So I think we just need to leave our parishes and our putative town council as stronger forces as they can be, and I think that needs to be part of our future work programme. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for the report. Yeah, Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to come back to page 30, and also I have another question. No, 33. I'm sorry, 33. And I think strategic objectives. I would like to go to the point E, where it says to bring communities together to promote a sense of belonging and cohesion. I just would like to know, how do we do that? How does the council work with that to get, to create the cohesion and bring other communities to integrate? Page 33. Page 33 and strategic objectives. Is the health living?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it? Yeah. And also that's a point E, which is to bring communities together. And the second thing, I think there is one thing that we tend, and it happens even, I think, at the county, the level of the county, because I'm a member of public protection. We talk about a lot of physical things happening, but there is one thing which is very hidden, and nobody, sometimes they don't talk about it, is the mental issues that a lot of people suffer from. And it can be a deep down, and people, they don't pay attention to it unless you talk to it. Is that included in our programs?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the page 33 on the, I think I've got a.
Which letter is it?
Yeah.
To bring communities, just how we do that, to bring communities, because we have a diverse communities in Boston.
Would you like to? Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. We have a variety of mechanisms that we do that. That may be through small focus groups, it may be bringing smaller communities together, but it certainly is through some of our larger events as well. So, for example, through the Boston Christmas celebration, we were very much aware that there was certainly a celebration of everyone as part of the Boston community. So it would be through some of those activities that we would certainly look to bring people together. I think if that's your question.
Yep. I would say, I'm here to work with my family. I see events and I see music. I will participate, but we don't have a look, even if I don't speak the language. For me, the question is how to reach to this part of our community and how we deal with them and talk to them to make them come and understand like our well-being, healthy eating, to know about we have 8 parks, country park. This is the things, how we can explain to them that, how we bring them, because some of them, we don't know nothing about this. Come here to work and provide engagement.
So again, we've got a very, very good comms team here at Boston Borough Council, and we work very well with them. I'm aware that they've got extremely good networks in terms of the social media groups that are set up with a vast variety of different community groups, and they are reaching into those networks to sort of advertise and promote anything that's happening. We've also got very good, well-established relationships with a number of key leaders from all sorts of different groups. And I know our portfolio holders are active in that space in terms of having conversations with certain group leaders to understand requirements and needs. And so we can then bring them back and formulate those into our strategies and plans. But so it's sort of like there's certainly a multitude of different ways we would communicate with all our communities in Boston, and any specific ones as and when we would need to. Quite a broad answer, but I think it's quite a broad question.
No, because I mean, if you allow me, Mr. Chairman, for me, it's I deal with the reality and the issues how they are. I'm not saying that people are doing that. I will not paint a situation with different or mask it with different words. Because I met a lot of them and none of them know. Most of the people I met, and I tell you, there is Bulgarians and Romanians. They have no clue what the council is for. The only thing they know sometimes to go to the Citizen Advice Bureau if they need things to be done, and that's it. When you ask them to be integrated, do you know this? Do you know that? So I feel that these communities are really sort of segregated. If they don't come to us, how can we reach to them and make them aware of what's going on and how to integrate themselves with the system and let them adopt the values of this council, what they are doing? Because we are doing a lot of jobs, we are taking a lot of time to create things. However, there is some people that are not involved in it. So this is my question, how we can attract them to us.
Thank you again, through you, Chairman. Yeah. I think so. There is certain techniques that we use. So there's certain levels of. So, for example, we can certainly put more information into our doctor's surgery, where we know that people regularly participate. Our supermarkets. We know that we've got many children that will have families back in the community. So how can we get those messages out to any of our children and young adults in our schools? So there's many techniques. Obviously, you have to do that in the round because we've only got a small communications team with small promotional budgets. But I think there's generally, as any marketing, you would do general marketing to a wider audience. and then tailor that in a targeted way should you need to, depending on what you're promoting. So we've certainly got the skills and we've got the knowledge, and we do undertake that. I'm not trying to present this as an easy one, because it is very challenging, and not everyone is on social media, not everyone reads leaflets, not everyone looks at posters, because everyone has busy lives. But we are very active in that space, and we continue to do that. But of course, if you've got any examples or anyone in the community where you feel it would be useful for us to get more messages out, please do report back to us.
Employment agencies.
And that's again, as councillors and ward members, you are best placed to know some of that information. So yes, we'll be like sponges, and we'll add all of that to our list.
I think employment agencies would be a good start, because there's a lot of people who work to night shift, day shift, and they don't know even their rights by working. Okay, if we come to the mental issues, do we do work on mental issues around the area as well with people? Please, thank you.
Yes, so we're part of the Boston Mental Health Partnership, which is led by our colleagues in Lincolnshire Partnership Foundation Trust, the mental health charity, mental health trust for the area, the NHS Trust. They have roles around community connectors, so we're working with them, and they're part of this. But a lot of the work around prevention actually reduces the mental anxiety, so particularly around money, especially with the cost of living pressures. That's been a really key one, working with local mental wellbeing support.
Yeah, Councillor Pierpoint.
First of all, let me just say that I think this is a very comprehensive thing that you're doing. I've read all this. It's very interesting. It's a very wide topic, a very wide subject, and there's a lot to cover. Is this programme across the three councils, and are you doing all three, or are you just doing Boston?
The Healthy Living Board is across the three councils, and I work across all three.
So you have a big job on, and it's quite a wide remit. So I can appreciate that. And I just want to say, Chairman and committee, that this is a very interesting, informative programme, and I'm very pleased at what you've said and the things that you're covering here. You could go on forever and ever, and I think you've focused on the right things, and I think you're taking it bit by bit, and I'd like to commend you on what you've done so far, what I've heard so far this evening. I'm very, very pleased at the outcome that you're doing, so thank you.
Anybody else? No, thank you. So we're asked to comment, which we've done. It's been recorded. Can I just ask though? Can we have later in the summer just an update on the web page and what we're doing to up the profile of the work you do and things like that? Thank you. Which brings us on to item 3, pages 37 to 58 of the agenda. The third report this evening is Boston Plan 2040, which is, as I've just said, on page 37. It will be presented by the Group Manager, Insight and Transformation, Suzanne Rolfe.
Thank you, Chair. So this consultation document has been drafted for the Boston Plan 2040. It sets out a shared vision for the entire borough, all 19 parishes and including the town, and links into the item that James was talking about earlier from the peer review. So it expands on the town centre strategy to cover the whole borough. It's been out for public consultation in January and February, including with residents, local businesses, schools and parish councils. We went out to some events as well, Celebrate Boston and Boston Brilliance. And committee are invited to consider the draft plan and feedback their views tonight to add into that consultation. So your views will be reported to Cabinet on the 26th of March alongside the wider consultation results. The proposed high-level priorities are around a thriving economy, community cohesion and resilience, and healthy and sustainable borough. And after assuming the plan is agreed, then an action plan will be put together at the next stage. So all of that consultation and your views tonight will feed into that action plan. And that will be delivered by a multi-agency, by a number of multi-agency working groups. So it won't just be the council, it'll be other agencies who are invited very much on the same way as the Healthy Board. So for each of those priorities, there'll be working groups put in place. You'll also receive reports on progress. They'll come to scrutiny and to Cabinet on a regular basis. And we've also added in, and also to the Parish Council liaison meetings, so that they're involved as well and get the updates. There are two key areas that have already been identified from the consultation, so I just wanted to mention those for your information. They will go into the next draft that goes forward to Cabinet, and that's around the potential impact of local government reorganisation. So an element in the report just to make it clear that it's a living document and it may have to move depending on the impact of things. So it'll be very clear in there that that's something we're aware of. And then more specific detail and actions relating to rural areas. So we've had some conversations with individual councillors as well around the potential for a rural strategy. And rather than go down that route and have a separate one, then we'll be able to pull that together into this plan so that it covers all areas, but there'll be specific actions in there. I've also noted the actions that you've mentioned already from Roxanne's report. So we'll pick those up because obviously there are links with the healthy side of things, and in particular with the reaching out to communities. So the plan for each of the actions is that there'll be more in-depth consultation and engagement with those actions themselves. It's quite difficult to get people too engaged in this high-level document. It's not real yet, and it hasn't got anything that sparks people's attention. So we'll make sure that when there are those individual actions come forward, there will be that consultation on them specifically, and we'll pick up your suggestions for how we make that happen across the board. I'm happy to take any comments, and they will go forward to the next Cabinet meeting.
Thanks. Councillor Einhold.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this report. Some rather worrying and frightening figures in this report, scary, in fact. One point I couldn't really understand, if you go to page 47, priority 1. In the top paragraph, it says there is a constantly low unemployment rate in Boston, lower than the national average. But then in paragraph 3, it says Boston Borough has the highest proportion of people out of work on benefits. I'm just not quite sure. Am I reading it right, or?
I think they are two different figures, but I will check and come back to you with the detail on that. I think it's because it's slightly different things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Some previous knowledge of mine, yeah, the second higher figure is not people actually seeking work. So the unemployed person is actually seeking work. And that normally around here is a relatively small figure in the figures we look at. But then, you know, there are people who are not seeking work. And so they're not, you know, they're not productive. So that's the difference. I mean, for example, you know, when I retired at 55, you know, for 12 years, I was not seeking work, and there's people like, yeah, so that's the difference. Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to complement to what you're saying, because I think 4 or 5 weeks ago was a report, government report, and state that Boston are the highest. They have the highest number in universal credit claimant in the country. But doesn't mean that they're not working.
By definition,
this is the thing. There is people working and then get the supplement of universal credit, and Boston was one of the highest.
They are, and we were the same with the previous sort of benefit like it.
Yeah.
You know, again, but that's a different thing. Most of those people are working. Many of them are working more than one job to try and make ends meet. So I mean, yeah, but again, they're different figures. So, Councillor Austin, sorry.
Can I draw your attention to strategic aim 1.5 on page 50? Attracting inward investment. Now, it all seems very vague to me, what is written there. Can we have some more positive examples of how this is working? We need confidence that it's not just verbiage. Are we really positively attracting inward investment is my question.
Thank you. Yes, I'll make sure that that's had some additional wording in that. I'll ask for some more detail and some examples to go in there. Thank you.
Councillor Pierpoint.
And just following on with Councillor Austin's comment, I mean, somebody needs to be going out there banging the drum and waving the flag and talking to people about, you know, coming into this area. You know, that how I see investment, not just putting an advert in the national press or sticking it in, you know, certain publications. I think it's a case of somebody approaching companies and businesses to see what their expansion programs are, see whether they ought to be coming into this area and relocating, or even setting up new, you know, opportunities, new offices, new warehousing. I don't think that proactiveness is here. I can remember when my days in Leicester, when I was on their board of investment. It was a separate entity to the council, but it was there about bringing people into that area and approaching companies and selling the ideas and the concept of what the benefits of being in Leicester was about. And I think this is something that we're not doing here. If we're doing it, we ain't doing it very well. I think we could do a lot more with that. And I think that's probably something that, you know, I think that's why it is a bit wishy-washy here. It doesn't give us anything concrete to work on. And I'd like to know who's doing that job. I'd like to know who's going out there talking to people. I'd like to know what progress we're making. What companies are we talking to? You know, have we got anybody in the pipeline that's going to come into this area? It's that type of thing that I think that this, you know, this borough needs. It really does need it. We need to be marketing. We need to be out there, banging the drum, waving the flag, and telling people there's plenty of opportunities here. And that's what we're not doing at the moment, in my view.
Councillor Austin, then Councillor Danny.
I came across recently a couple that were work from home in very high tech work. They were living in an urban conurbation, and they just wanted a better quality of life and a better place to live and work in. And they could go anywhere in the country, really. And of course, they came to Boston because of the cheap housing, and because that they knew there were 8 country parks on their doorstep. And we need, I come back to this, we need to be selling this tremendous advantage we've got. 8 country parks and this and the central park in the central Boston. It's a wonderful bait to get people who can live anywhere in the country, working in high-tech work, and that's the sort of people we want here. And of course, we've got cheap housing just as a just to make it very attractive for them to come here.
Yeah, part of the reason you're suffering me is that very thing. You know, the existence of the Havenside Country Park, which is literally just across the road from my house. And in the days when I had legs that actually worked, you were able to walk, you know, from my house right the way down to the Wash, you know, alongside the Haven. Great. And obviously now we've got many more with the new woods and things. So yeah, I agree. Any Councillor Danny?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, since we talk about businesses and investment, and this is again from what's happening in the marketplace, and this is from local business people. They found it very difficult to work with our planning department and licensing. And there is a new business just opened in town, I think probably a couple of weeks ago. They already put their application through the licensing system. They haven't heard anything. They don't know what's going on. Same applies on planning. It's very difficult to deal with them sometimes. And people, I think they're put off because of that. I think as a council, and we're in need of attracting businesses, we should make things much more, not easier, we should follow the law. However, we should be more helpful and giving guidance to these businesses coming to town, so not to lose them. because if you lose one business, it's very easy to spread around and people will just put off. If we help people, I think we can achieve more. And I think this is a way to investment in the town, because look, I heard about few issues with different businesses in Boston, and believe you me, it's always why they tell us to do this, not to tell, and it's just a fight. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, and it keeps going on. And there is one major issue is always they put in your face is a listed building. You can't do that, you can't do. No, there is ways of getting around it. And I give you an example. A few years ago, a gentleman was going to open a shop here, a nice shop, and because of the danger of breaking the windows, he wanted to put shutters in the shop, and the council refused. However, he gave them few examples of certain shops in the marketplace with shutters, which is I was with him, and the answer was, oh, they have been done before my arrival, therefore it's my opinion. No, if somebody has something, I think we should compromise and allow others to do it. So like I say, we shouldn't lose businesses in town. We should encourage business to come here and make it probably more easy and work with them. And I think that will be an idea for us to make things easy. If we want businesses to come to town, believe you me, it's a fact.
Everybody? Oh, Councillor Isaac.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about the cold. I probably sound like a Dalek. Can I take you back to page 50, please, and strategy aim 1.4? And basically the paragraph, the local plan is the key driver for housing and economical growth in the borough. Site development, homes and employment are allocated in the plan and associated infrastructure requirements. Now, most planning that I've seen, including the new 200 homes, which is going up by on the link on the A52, hasn't got any kind of infrastructure. What do you mean by that statement in this paragraph?
In its widest sense, it can be any kind of infrastructure depending on the development. So it might be roads, it might be shops, it might be broadband, and making sure all those sides of things are available. But it does depend on the development, and I don't know much about that specific one. But we'll be able to put some more detail in the action plan. So I'll make sure that that's expanded to be clear about what types of infrastructure we could encourage and how we would go about doing that. Thank you.
I think it's important because we're allowing, and let's face it, the government are going to override planning rules considerably in the next couple of years. And it's really important because we're already stretched for infrastructure at this moment. I mean, my local Parkside surgery is overwhelmed with the number of people. We can't keep creating housing without putting in other infrastructure. And that's got to be important to Boston as a plan, just as much as encouraging business, quite rightly.
Councillor Pierpoint.
Yeah, listen, I'm all for a plan and I'm all for a vision and I'm all for, looking into the future. My only concern is on this plan, it's 15 years away. Is it 2040, or is that just a title and a working title, or we're talking about 15 years away? Because I'm not quite sure. What I don't want to see is loads of work and time and effort going into something, and then 2 years' time it gets thrown out the window or it gets binned. And that's what my concern is, because in 2 or 3 years' time we may not be sitting here because of all the devolution and all the other things that are going to pop up. I think if we're going to do something like this, it needs to have some concrete, and it needs to be able to be given to somebody from here to the next organisation that runs this area with some real good stuff that says, look, this is a lot of hard work and effort's gone into this. And really, this is what we're thinking for the future this borough looks like, or the town looks like, or whatever. But I don't want to think that all that effort and hard work goes into something and then this gets binned in 2 or 3 years' time. That's my only worry. I mean, if you had a vision for the next 3 years, great, because we could see that happening. But for 15 years, if 2040 is what we're talking about, I haven't got a crystal ball. I don't think anybody else in this room's got a crystal ball. And also, the goalposts will keep moving, I would imagine, in this plan. Year on year, changes will have to go into this plan to keep moving it down the line. Am I right in saying that? So how is it all going to end up?
So it is a living document and it will need to move as we move along, but the 2040 is to give us that longer vision to be able to look ahead and not look just to what's coming in front of us. And it's around the net zero target as well. So it gives us that length of time to think about things. But the model for the action plan will be the same as the town centre strategy action plan. So very detailed, specific things that will be coming up in the next year, and that will go in the annual delivery plan each year. So there are very clear deliverables in there with dates, and I've taken on board the discussions from earlier about making sure that that progress doesn't just say ongoing. So there'll be specific dates and review dates in there, and it'll be monitored and reported back to you. So you'll be able to see the progress very quickly. But if it does need to change because of changing circumstances, then we'll still be able to do that. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's got that long view, but it has specific actions that will deliver sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, you don't know what's going to be happening to this plan, do you? So we're not quite sure what's going to happen, even though the hard work is being done and all that sort of thought process and all that consultation and all that sort of, you know, really sort of digging deep and seeing what people want to see in this area the next 15 years. We still can't guarantee after 3 or 4 years where this is all going to end up, can we?
No, but it would be there for whoever or whatever, or if we're still here, it will be there, and better to have a plan, I think, that we can then hand
I'm
over.
all for plans and I like vision, because I think, you know, if you don't have a vision and a plan, you get static and you also go backwards in life. And I'm a great believer of going forwards. So yes, great idea. I just want to make sure that all the effort and hard work that you're going to do and everybody else is going to do doesn't go down the pan. That's all I'm concerned about, because it's a lot of time and effort and cost.
Councillor Austin.
Rather tucked away in this document is a comment about the 400th anniversary of this town giving birth to the other side of the Atlantic, Boston, Massachusetts. Now, if we play it right, this anniversary can be very, very big for this Boston, but we've got to play it right and we've got to give it priority. We've got to start giving it a lot of priority immediately, because it's only 4 short years away, and I'm confident we can do it. But I would like to see much more priority in this document of that forthcoming event. Mr. Chairman, I do have to declare that I am a trustee of the partnership of the two Bostons. I don't think I need to walk out of the room because of that, but it's there's a lot happening and can happen, but it needs everybody on board, and it needs rather more priority in this document than it's got at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you again. You know, we've been asked to comment, and obviously we've made various comments which you've taken on board. Again, can I just thank actually everybody tonight on the report. Compared to when I came back onto the council, the reports are now much clearer. They're much easier for us to understand and to get through, and that applies to both Suzanne's report tonight, but also the earlier ones. It does make our job so much easier when when things are clear and we're not having to go backwards and forwards and things like this. Anyway, so that's just that more general thing. I'm also pleased, obviously, we've taken on board within this report reorganisation, because obviously we'd be stupid not to. But I do feel for us as councillors, you know, this is our role now for the next 2 to 3 years, is ensure that we've enabled everything we can for our community to be resilient and to be able to take over local things, because we need that local control still. And we'll be coming to that obviously at a later meeting. But in general, can I thank officers tonight for those bits? We're not quite finished, but please feel free not to stay. because the next thing is our work programme. So the final agenda item this evening is the work programme, which starts on page 59 of the pack. Can I just say that I have arranged for an extra meeting of scrutiny for Thursday, the 8th of May, when we're outside of Borough. Going back to what I've just been saying, I think it's important that we look at the way we scrutinise and the structure and how we do things, because I do think over the next 2 years, we will have our most important role in both scrutinising the changes, but enabling members to bring forward ideas for the change. You know, because at the moment, in general, we are looking at things that already exist, and that is fine. That's part of our role, and we do some pre-scrutiny, but maybe not enough. But another power and role scrutiny should have is actually generating from members policy. And so I do think we need to be able to be now bringing forward ideas about how things change. I will just give a very small example now of something. I previously was a town councillor elsewhere. So, and that town council had control of on-street parking. You know, at the moment, the county controls it because not all the districts could agree. And we have people coming in from Nottingham every now and then, and they do some traffic warden-y things. Now, the town I used to be a town councillor of, we had control of on-street parking. So we had our own employed traffic wardens who did on-street parking, our own car parks, district car parks and county car parks. Now, as well as being much more proactive and much more meeting the needs of the local community, it also, and this is 25 years ago, brought in well over £100,000 to the coffers of the town council. So we're thinking of setting up a town council here, but we've got to make sure that town council is properly resourced and has the ability to start developing projects. The town council, we actually built an £8.5 million swimming pool. Proceeded immediately to give it to the district council to run. But you know, there are lots of things we can do. We've got to make sure our parishes and the putative town council are well established with good sources of income and, you know, good power, you know, taking control of as much as they can for our local community. And that's something that we from scrutiny will have to be trying to drive. I'm not saying this is going to be opposed by the leadership, it's not going to be, but we have that power to start generating policy, and we need to be much more active in our scrutiny. So the meeting on the 8th of May is to just ask for a report on various structures, how we can be leaner sort of and fitter, and you know, the use of task and finish groups and work and stuff. So we've got that report, but also to encourage you to attend that meeting, there's going to be a really fantastic report on HMOs. So you need to come to listen to that anyway, and then you can stay for the next bit. But now the work programme. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. You've pretty much covered it. So we have scheduled at your request a member briefing before the meeting in relation to HMOs. There's been a lot of discussion over the last 12 months. Emily and her team are putting that together. And what I've asked is, from my perspective, having been head of housing for 20 years, listening to members talk, I've asked for it to start at a really fundamental level, just so that we can establish a real shared understanding of what an HMO is, what a licensable HMO is, what licenses do and don't do. I always use the analogy that I've got a full clean driving license, but none of you would want to drive with me. Just to try and put over that, to stimulate a discussion around licensing, the extension of licensing, and drivers to ask the questions, is it a panacea to everything? Because what many members don't know is that a licensable HMO or not licensable exactly the same powers in law stand that the local authority has to regulate and to control and to engage landlords. So John Challen, through Emily's leadership, is going to give us a detailed presentation on that, which hopefully will enable the committee to hone in any particular questions for the 25-26 municipal year that it wants to really scrutinise.
You know, just we understand the basic legislation and that, but some of the research that me and Councillor Baxter have done, we found that other areas bring in other local kind of guidelines. So will you be bringing that to the table as well? What other areas have developed as far as HMO properties?
I can ask Mr. Challen to introduce a range of examples. If you've got anything from areas that you're aware of that have been brought in, if you want to send those to myself and Emily so that we know exactly what we're looking for. I mean, from my perspective, it's really quite simple. The 2004 Act governs everything now around HMOs, which provides the rating system. There are then a set of regulations, and I still come back to you know, we need to be, I hear very often, we need to address the issue of HMOs. But what we don't do is to tie down what are those issues in HMOs. Is it a Housing Act enforcement regime? Is it antisocial behaviour? And if we have that discussion, then hopefully we can help members understand what we can and what we can't do in legislation and what might be optional. Your very point, Councillor Izard, as to where there might be scope for further work that's reasonable, justified and proportionate. Councillor Pierpoint's entire queries tonight, where we can demonstrate we understand what outcomes we want to achieve, the time in which we want to achieve them, and that we can actually measure them. So I think that it'll be really useful for you to sit and hear that. We'd suggested, Chairman, have we had an hour for that session? About an hour. So starting at 5:30 to bring that forward. But if there's any particular questions you would like those delivering the presentation to do, I'll do my best not to chirp in, but I've probably delivered more HMO presentations than anybody still in the partnership, so always happy to share what I used to call knowledge. Then there's the report that the Chairman said, and then there's the joint annual scrutiny report that will come to the 8th of May as well.
Just may ask a question, Andy. I think the thing that I'm always interested in is there's a moving target of people in these HMOs, sort of coming and going all the time. And so, you know, clearly, you know, one of the things I'd be interested in is what the issues and problems are that this council has with HMOs and how they're fixing it or finding the solutions, because you hear of lots of things to do with fly tipping and dumping, and I'm not saying it's all HMOs, but the people in there coming and going for a certain period of time and moving out and people moving in, it never seems to, it's like a revolving door to me. And that creates its own issues and problems. And I think that's something I'd be interested to know is how are we tackling that question for the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll make sure, I'll probably ask Mr. Hunn as well that he gives some view, because you know HMOs and the issues are interrelated to other disciplines and things as well. So as I certainly talking to Mr. Challen, he will provide you some basic facts and set out some, I suppose, interesting points for you to consider, I say, to hone in on those very issues.
Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing which is always, I think it's not struck me or surprised me, it's happening in Boston. I mean, we talk about HMOs and that's the licensed ones, so we know about them. We know that people come in and go, but there is another issue and another pandemic is where there is probably 14 people living in one place and then they address themselves as one family. And according to the law, if they are one family, there is nothing we can do. And that's what increases the fly tipping all time. Now, I relate that to the healthy living we talked about. So we want a community which is they live healthy, they live in appropriate places, they live nicely, they are happy, but we haven't got it in Boston. And I think this is, where things for me, it gets a bit, it's tricky. We can't deal with it because it's one family, but it's against the law. You cannot keep, 4 or 5 kids with 3 members of other 6 adults as a family living in a 3-bedroom house. So this is, I think it's a question of probably to come with whatever insight of that issue, how you deal with it and how, the council deal with it. The other thing, because again, there is another one, which is subletting. And I think a lot of agencies, do you know about that? Do we contact the agencies straight away to let them know that they cannot leave, that amount of people? And I give you an example, Mr. Fisher. A friend of mine, he works in management in one of food factories around Boston. He told me sometimes we found 16 people with the same address, 14 people with the same. When we ask him, oh no, we are one family, we're living together. So I don't know if we have to even check with these, factories and see what we can do.
And
Thank you.
And what Mr. Challen will be able to tell you is that the suite of enforcement tools we have in our toolbox don't only relate to HMOs. The rating system applies to every residential property. It's just that there are some enhanced powers in relation to HMOs. So the 1985 Housing Act, Part 10, that defines statutory overcrowding, is still in force today. We have overcrowding powers through the HHS, or the Housing Health and Safety Rating System. So Mr. Challen not only will be able to talk about HMOs, where you have questions and queries about single family households, he'll be able to explain exactly what the law provides for and doesn't as well in that presentation for you.
That's right. Thank you. I mean, one thing I've come across in my ward was maybe a little bit of lack of joined upness here. When basically a HMO told the HMO people, I'm no longer a HMO. So he said, fine. And he became serviced rooms. But of course, HMO people never told planning that we now had a service rooms that need planning permission. And also no one told council tax, because now that becomes a rateable entity rather than a council taxable entity. So I think we do need to have a look a bit of joined up stuff there. But obviously we've got a whole, well, not a bit of a night. I will be inviting all non-executive members to that meeting, both because of the presentation and obviously we'll be talking about scrutiny in general. So I'm more than happy to hear from not all non-exec members on that. And that's that, folks. Oh, Councillor Danny.
One thing I want to say, thank you for the ladies for the answering. I try to be as much as to be a constructive and giving ideas than rather, just being negative. We would love, I like the report. It's very interesting. However, there is points we can discuss.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Say. Yeah. Just
that's the whole.
And I like the word you say, contributing. We would like to contribute more to our town and to help our officers here to achieve what they want, so we can all work together as a team and make it team fantastic.
So thank you very much. Meeting over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, dear. Goodbye.
Thank you.